And I suppose when I started in television, it was the old-timey outdoor guy in my neck of the woods. Uh, um, Big Al, I think his name was. Big Al. He did outdoor stuff. So I think that's what gave me.
That was Gene Herring talking about some of the people that had an influence on him getting into the fishing industry over 30 years ago. Gene shares a great old story or two in this week's episode in a career in the fishing video industry. We are on episode 23 of the Wet Fly Swing Show.
Welcome to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show, where you discover tips, tricks, and tools from the leading names in fly fishing today. We'll help you on your fly fishing journey with classic stories covering steelhead fishing, fly tying, and much more.
How's it going, everyone? Thanks for stopping by the Fly Fishing Show. Before I get into the intro, I want to remind you to follow us on Instagram at instagram.com/wetflyswing. In today's episode, I interviewed Gene Herring, a guy who has been producing fishing videos for over 35 years. Gene talks about some of the over 40 steelhead videos he has produced, along with plenty of others, clarifies what the real wet fly fishing is all about, and his plan to help get some of this content out to you. He has been involved in the fishing industry, including Fishing the West, a TV show, for the last 5 years of that series, produced the nationally syndicated Flyfish TV series, and has since moved his brand into flyfishtv.com. Don't miss this as Gene connects us with some of the biggest names in fly fishing of today and from the past. Without further ado, here's Gene Herring. How's it going, Gene?
Good. A little wet, but outside of that, okay.
Yeah, this is good. We always have a little bit of technical stuff we get straightened out before the show, it seems like. So this is awesome that we're finally chatting here. So I wanted to dig in. The flyfishtv.com brand and everything has been, I've seen it quite a bit out there, and I've dug into a little bit and seen a number of the videos and stuff you have, and you've got a wide range of topics. I was hoping you can, break down what that's all about as we get into it. But before we get there, maybe you can just tell us how you got into fly fishing and how the whole Flyfish TV kind of came to be.
Boy, well, I kind of grew up, had an outdoorsy family. So, the first fly fishing I did wasn't fly fishing at all. It was just with a fly rod, and I was in northern Wisconsin, and I suppose we'd go up for the trout opener, and we would have fly rods because our creeks were little bitty small deals, and you could use it to stick out and use a spinner and a little piece of worm on there. So we called it fly fishing. That was probably it. But then I got into journalism and started working in TV news eventually, and that was kind of a trail that led me from Wisconsin then to New Mexico, and then came up here and worked for the Channel 8 here in Portland, and that's kind of how I got here and I turned out that I was a much better photographer probably than I was a journalist, so I ended up being a video photographer or video journalist, I guess. And kind of funny deal was when I got here, which I love the outdoors, and that's where I like to be. And whenever they had a story that came up that had to do with outdoors, for some reason the other guys didn't want to run out and get wet and dirty or whatever. They always said he would do it. So so I started shooting up here, and then I had a passion for fishing, and I loved to chase steelhead, and then eventually I just decided that I wanted to do outdoor stuff, and I quit doing television news and started up. My original first show was called Pacific Outdoors, and it was more news-oriented outdoor issue stuff, but on fisheries, on forestry, on all the outdoor stuff, and I think I was a little before my time, but we had quite a few stations and did that for a while, and I went back to work for TV news, and then I don't know if you remember the Fishing the West show, which ran in the Northwest. They kind of switched over their crews and kind of fired the people they had, and somebody called me up and said, "You want to go fishing?" And that was really what kicked me off. So I did that show for the last 5 or 6 years that it was in business, and then when that show ended, I I went independent, and then I started the fly fishing TV show because I had learned how to do fishing shows, and I did a fly fishing TV show, instructional how-to variety show, and that was on national cable for like 5 years running. And then being a tough economy and whatnot, I of course did everything, did independent stuff, and a lot of my independent stuff was shooting instructional how-to videos and lodge videos. So I did a lot of fly fishing stuff, and that's kind of how I got into it. And then when TV shows got to be, it just was tough for one man deal to do a TV show. I started doing the instructional how-to videos, and I did a whole line of fly fishing videos. So I probably got 30 different instructional fly fishing videos. And the Frank Amato publications, I did their gear fishing videos, their instructional how-to gear fishing videos. So that's kind of what brought me here now. And of course, I used to do a lot of DVDs, but DVDs we don't do so much anymore. And now most of my stuff streams. It's you connect through my website to Vimeo, and you can stream or download the videos. But they're feature length, they're full length ones. But that's kind of how I got into it.
That's awesome. Yeah, and we'll dig more into some of these videos and some of your guests. But no, this is already starting out good because I didn't even realize your connection to Fishing the West and Channel 8. I mean, this is pretty awesome. I was wanted to definitely hear about the Fly Fish TV, but I love to hear the background and your connection. I mean, you've been in it a while. Like, so how many years? When did you start your whole kind of, would you say your outdoor kind of media type of stuff back
when I added up in my head, I go like TV news was probably 15 years and probably 30 years of doing outdoor stuff.
Well, 30 years total.
Yeah. Pretty much.
That's cool. Yeah. I had, just thinking about some of my older guests that I've had on the show, and Jim Teeney was one who had on, I think, episode 5. And, he talked about, I can't remember. Was he one of your guests on?
I did Jim did, I did a number of shows. I did kind of a variety show. I didn't have one specific guy. I just took the best guys I could find. So Jim did 10 or 15 shows with Jim. And I did a video called Secrets of Steelhead with him, which is him talking about his swing deal. And I think I did that nearly 20 years ago, and it still sells to this day.
Yep.
You can't kill that video.
Yeah.
It keeps going.
That's awesome.
I've been to Alaska with Jim, and I fished with him in the Bahamas for
nice
tarpon, and just banged around. So it has been lucky. I've got to
for sure
meet a lot of the guys I'm sure you probably have talked to, and I probably did, I guess, over the years 40 or 50 different TV shows with Steelhead and TV shows with a variety of folks.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, hopefully we'll have time. We'll dig into a little more of that. So just thinking about your, the Fly Fish TV, so it sounds like that got started, more recently as you kind of transitioned. Did you have any, getting into it, did you have like kind of goals for that whole, business, or were you just kind of a secondary thing as you kind of had it out there?
No, it was, just the idea was, I mean, my experience had been that fly fishing was always, I don't know, they tried to make it too technical and overthought. It was just, my feeling was it's not as hard as people make it out to be. Try and, give simple, straightforward instruction and help people understand it. And I'm not sure that was that successful. I mean, we got out a lot of videos out there, and then finally, when I started hooking up with some of like Teeny and a guy named Kelly Gallup, some of the people I had run into who really were smart fly fishing people who really had something to say that people wanted to hear. That's kind of eventually when it headed from TV show into instructional how-to feature length videos. So that was the kind of transition. But no, I wouldn't say I had any master plan. I like being outdoors. I like fishing, and I like to be around fishing people. And I think the goal was just to stay out there and keep working.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, I just looking at the your website. I mean, there's a ton of content. Do you have like any idea? You said like 40 Steelhead videos. I mean, how many total DVDs or videos, and then how many guests that you have out there that people can take a look at? And then what are the subjects, and what are the total?
Yeah, well, there's two different things. The Fly Fish TV was a TV show that aired nationally on national cables and whatnot. But the Fly Fish TV, I just kept the name to do the instructional videos. So it's kind of the same name for do different things. So the instructional Fly Fish TV videos, I probably have still, I mean, the ones that haven't been retired and close to 40 different instructional videos. And they kind of fall into your basic ones, which all the way from introduction to fly fishing and introduction to casting and bugs and basics of fishing a trout stream and whatnot. So I got 6 or 8 of those, and fly tying fundamentals. Kelly Gallup, I probably have 8 or 9 videos with Kelly. His big deal is streamer fishing, so I have probably 3 different streamer fishing. Also nymphing, I have at least 2 different nymphing ones with Kelly. And then I have, of course, tying. His articulated streamers really has been popular. So I got the kind of the streamer and nymphing with Kelly Gallup. And then my other top selling professional is a guy named Davey Watton, who is a guide down on the White River in Arkansas. He's originally from Wales, and he is just a brilliant kind of angler guy. He's a little hard to understand. He's an ornery critter, but he's probably the most knowledgeable fly angler I ever ran across. So I've got his wet flies was his big thing, the traditional style of fishing wet flies, where they fished a cast of flies, which is multiple flies. And we think in the United States, wet fly fishing is throwing a fly out and swinging it. And of course, when it really originated, that wasn't it. It was you had multiple flies. They were wet flies, and most of them were attractors, as it turned out. But they fished them to all quarters of the stream, fishing upstream and across and down, and that is he's most famous for. So that wet fly fishing I have, and then I have a midge fishing one where he talks about how to fish very fine flies with light tippet and tiny patterns. And then I've got a number of tying videos with him, his fundamentals, and of course wet fly tying. So there's that. Cast them. And then for spey fishing, I've done 3 different spey videos with John and Amy Hazel, some with both, some with just John, all into shoots, fundamentals, all the different casts. Then one specifically at fishing steelhead, and then one which is more about switch rods, how that has changed the sport, and how you set up your switch rod and what different lines you use and how the casts are a little different with that. And the last one just last year, I did winter spey strategy with Rob Crandall, who guides, here and on the coast. I guess you're out on the coast now, and he's out there nailing probably the same river you are. And that was on winter fishing, how to get down and why it's, how your gear changes and whatnot. Doing that. So that's the instructional vein for gear fishing, which I did all the Amato ones. I did a number of different ones from drift fishing to float fishing. Then more recently, when Amato's quit doing videos, I've done a couple. One called Bobber Dogging with a guy named Josiah Dar and Mike Kelly, which was pretty successful. And that we did over on the coast. And I did another one where I went up to the peninsula, and it was just about different ways of steelheading and kind of the gear they're using now. And we covered spinners and spoons and a little bit of everything. It's for the guy who's just getting started, who wants to know how you go about steelhead fishing and what different ways you can do it. So yeah, I've chased those steelhead a little bit. As far as number of shows, like I said, I imagine I've been lucky enough to do 40 or 50 of them on steelhead fishing per se, all up. I've done pretty much most every river up and down. I don't know most every, but quite a few up and down the Oregon coast and Northern California, and a number of the places in British Columbia, the Skeena, and a number of the Kispioks up there in the Sustut, and then I did go with Teeny back east and fish a couple of the tributaries to the Great Lakes up in New York, in there, some of the smaller streams. Well, there, I wish I could tell you. There's there's a bunch of them, like 7 mile, 10 mile. I don't know. They call their creeks by the mile up there. I don't know. So I was lucky enough to do a couple of them up there. So I've seen some steelhead water.
Cool. Wow. So this is you have a ton of content out there, and with Rob, so you're still producing new videos. Do you plan to keep producing new videos and new guests as you keep going here?
Well, I'm right, I would say, at the transition stage.
Yeah.
It's harder to climb up those hills with the gear and run up and down streams. I'm very proud to say that I have never gone in and completely submerged the camera, and I'm not sure I shouldn't just I have come very close in any number of situations to where and I've been along when other people have gone swimming with their cameras, and I haven't done it, but I think if I try and keep doing it anymore, I don't know. I'm probably at the point. I have a couple, like I say, a couple close friends and old clients, and that I might do a few things with, but I'm not out pushing them. I do think if there was one more swing and flies video I would do, it would be trout spey, which is becoming popular now. Using spey gear to fish trout, I have tried to talk a couple people into. Oh, there's a number of different ones out there. A lot of guys are doing them, but I think there's one to be done there yet. I think if somebody would look at my, I've tried to talk Rob Crandall in it. The wet fly fishing video that I've got with this guy named Davey Watton, mixed with somebody who really does spey. I think there's some good information there, because I think trout spey is, the guys like to spey cast. They like those big rods. They like to do that, and I think there's something in between swinging flies the way you like to swing them for steelhead and fishing trout that I think would be fun. Yeah, and I think it can be productive.
Yeah, I agree. I had Matt Klara on the show. He was talking about trout spey in episode 21. Just a note here, I'll provide links to all the any of the links we talk about here today. The show we're doing is going to be wetflyswing.com/23 will be this one, so you can check.
So you're making headway. Get another 400 of those, and you'll be right up to how many shows I
That's right. Well, I'm doing exactly. I'm doing one a week, so it's going to take me. I imagine, it's going to take me six or 8 years or so to kind of get up to feel good. But actually, the funny thing about the podcasting is that they say if you do more than, I think, like 8 shows, that you're past 95% of the people that try it. So it's like most people quit. So I'm well past that, on my way to a
right. That says one or two things, but anyway,
I still have a lot of work to do. But I really love hearing the history there and talking about how started as the TV series back in the day, and I assume some of those videos you can still find out there.
On YouTube at flyfishtv.com on YouTube, there are some of the episodes, and in fact, I want to, before too long, I'm going to start running them by seasons. It's people look at it like you would look at Netflix. I want to put it up like that, so where you have season 1 and season 2 and season 3, and I can probably put 7 or 8 seasons of 26 episodes up there. So there are some of the later versions. I did, when I quit doing it, Kelly Gallup wanted to do like, I think the last, I probably got at least probably a dozen episodes up there, which you can watch for free, are up there, but I got another 130 of them going back to the early days that I can start putting up on the YouTube channel. So
yeah,
that's one of my chores. So
cool. Yeah, you got, that's awesome. You got lots to do. Well, I got a kind of a big question for you. This is something I actually think about, and probably a lot of people do, as you get to this, stuff online and things like. I mean, what's your plan? At the end of the day, I mean, we're all going to be gone in 50 years or whatever. I mean, you've got a bunch of content that can help people for years and years and years. I mean, do you have a plan for all that stuff? I mean, how is it going to continue out there, and how are people going to learn? Or is that something you think about?
Yeah, no, I think about that all the time. I would like it to generate some income and until where you can stream it. Like if you connect to it, you're going to end up at Vimeo, and you can stream it one time, or you can download it. And I think that kind of wears out. I mean, eventually, I think it's going to just be up there. I know that YouTube is going to come out with a video on demand, so I think it will just come out on video. I will have all the stuff available for video on demand, and the price will diminish here over time, and eventually maybe it will just all go up there for nothing. My stuff is, I just like to do feature length stuff. I mean, if I take on something, I want to have enough there so somebody can really learn something. So it's not little snippets. I think everybody tells me what you need to do, Gene, is just cut it up in a bunch of little pieces and put them up there and make your revenue from advertising. And that's probably the way to go. It's just I kind of like people to have the full lesson if they're going to watch it.
Yeah.
But I may break down at some point and do that. But like I say, I am running them full length and have them, and eventually, I guess, like I say, they'll go out there. That the good thing is that, well, I mean, the nice thing is I've been lucky to work with some good people. So one thing about information, if it's good information, it doesn't matter when it came out.
Yep.
People can still get something from it. That's my feeling about it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of, like I say, there's some of the free stuff on YouTube, and I suppose more and more of it will come out that way, where it'll be available free, but it's also there for somebody who really wants to dig into it. I think there's substance there. And it's pretty reasonable. It used to be, you had to pay $20 or $30 for a DVD. Now you're paying half of that or less to, get a look at it once. So if somebody wants to pick up something, it's there.
Okay. So if we had somebody on here that's fairly new to steelhead fishing, maybe looking for winter fish or, something like that, you would direct them to Vimeo. Where would you send them to learn?
Well, I mean, are you talking about just fly fishing directly?
Yeah.
I mean, well, if you go to flyfishtv.com and you look down there, if you spey guy, there's John Hazel's spey fishing steelhead, which I think is a great one. I think this recent one, winter spey strategy. So you can find the video. It will take you to your option. You can get the DVD, or you can do a download, or you can do a stream, so you can have any choice in doing that. If you're talking about guys who are not strictly fly fishing, gear guys, the gear videos, I've combined the videos that I did for Amato's on steelheading and salmon fishing with the couple that I have done gear fishing videos, and they're on a different site called anglerfishproductions.com. That was a label that I just created for gear fishing. Gotcha. And the videos that I have done. So that's another vein, but you can get to them, like I say, through flyfishtv.com and anglerfishproductions.com for gear fishing guys. I think some of the gear fishing stuff, at least it tells you, something about steelhead themselves, which is even helpful to the fly guy. I think that there's too much this way, or guys who go, well, I only do this, and they don't talk about this, or I only do that. Well, I think for me, I was doing shows where you did both this and that, and it was amazing. You could learn a little about each other's sport from each other. It was, it was all, most of it was gear back in the day, and when they evolved it to the fly fishing in this country anyway. I think it was the other way around in Europe, but I think there's something to be learned there. I was doing this one kind of bobber dogging, which is just fishing with floats and kind of dragging the gear, bait, and beads. And I even, by the time I got done that, I was convinced that steelhead hang down there on the bottom much more than I thought. They're pinned down there, they're way down there, and you got to get down to get them unless they're real happy, unless they're real. So getting down, and it's different with summer fish. I know you can draw the summer fish up, but the winter fish you got to encourage them to come off where they are, which I think a lot of it is down deep. Anyway, so I don't know what we were talking about, but there you go.
No, that's I think you covered that very well. So, I was just thinking, more about your history. So, as you kind of look back at the, all the years, 30 years of doing this, is there a point there where you kind of think you had a, kind of a turning point or a story, something that basically brought you into the industry fully, or, have you always just been
into fly fishing?
Or gear, just, it sounds like you've been doing this a while, but at some point, you kind of went all into the fishing. Was there a point there that kind of triggered that, or was that just kind of a natural evolution?
Well, I think when I came, I was doing the Fishing with the West show, which I was lucky to be on that. And I got to travel the world on somebody else's dime and see the fishing all over, which was a great experience. What I got out of that, there's a well-known lake fishing guy named Denny Rickards, who's down in Southern Oregon. And he wanted to do a tie-in video, and we did that. And then, somebody saw that and they wanted me to do a tying video for that. And then another guy, Jay Fair, I think Jay Fair passed away. He was in Northern California. He fished like on Eagle Lake in Northern California. He wanted to do an instructional fly fishing video on how he was a crossover. He trolled lakes with flies and he tied flies and ended up doing a video for him on how to fly fish, how to troll flies for big trout. And, I think that there was like 3 or 4 months there where everything I was doing and what people were paying me to do was doing fly fishing stuff. And I think that's probably what turned me towards strictly fly fishing, because that's where, I was getting clients. I had kids to feed. I had to stay busy. And it was like, well, maybe there's something to this fly fishing stuff. And then, like everything else, I had done TV shows and going, well, maybe I should do a TV show on that. And that's kind of what happened. So it was, and I think the thing about fly fishing, I just like the places it took me. I just like the rivers. I just like it got you to places I like to be in. It got me to the mountains. It got me to the rivers, and so it was a happy place for me.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's cool. It's cool to hear. And I was telling before we got started here, I interviewed a new guide on the last episode, Duran Torres, and he has a really cool perspective on everything. But it's interesting because you've been doing this a long time. He's just getting started, and the take home message that I hear from a lot of people is that you can't get into the fly fishing industry for the money, and that keeps coming up. You gotta have that passion. So do you have any knowledge or wisdom you'd tell Duran Torres as he's starting out, as far as what to expect? Or...
God bless you if you want to babysit anglers. I don't know. I've always thought about it, and I have spent a lot of time with guides, and I'm going, God bless you if you can do this every day and time after time. And being a guide is a lot like being a fishing video photographer. Everybody said, "Oh, geez, you got to fish everywhere." Well, I got to watch people fish
people.
everywhere. You know, I looked at a lot of guys' behinds, you know, over the years, and I always said that doing fishing shows, if it was real bad fishing, you would get to fish. Well, why don't you go ahead and try and fish for a while, you know? And then the trouble was, if it was really good, it had come down to, well, let's do another show. We can get 2 shows here. It was 2. So you had to be kind of in a sweet spot there. That was, if it was, it was just good enough to get 1 show and you got it done quick enough, then maybe you would have a couple hours before dark to get some time in. So it's not all cracked up to be, but I, you know, like I say, you have to get, the reward is being out there and doing what you like to do and being where you like to be. And I've always had ants in my pants, so I don't think I could do it as a guide in the same place over and over again. I mean, I don't know. I was lucky. I got to go a different place all the time. So, but these guys who, you know, it takes a special character. It takes a special person, and if you want to stay married, it's going to take a special woman. I can tell you that, because it's a tough and demanding life. I mean, like I was saying, Kelly Gallup, my top guy, Kelly doesn't guide anymore because he runs his shop and he does a lot of stuff. But the Davey Watton, I suppose Davey is pushing my age, which is, you know, 68 going on 70. He still does 215 days a year on the water. So,
he probably loves it. I mean, that's the thing that you hear from the guides. They're still doing it. I mean, they've probably evolved a little bit, but I mean, they just love it. I've done a little bit of myself and pretty much didn't like it that much. It's I think it takes a special person.
It does. I mean, you have to somehow get enjoyment out of that and catching people fish and whatnot. And there's a lot of great ones in this country, in this neck of the woods. And I've been lucky to fish with a lot of them. But like you say, it takes a special person, and you gotta love being there on the water and love that community that you're in. And then you have to, with our fishery, which is tougher than a lot of them, we're so dependent on fish that run up rivers and runs and whatnot. I don't know how you would have any hair if you were a guide in this neck of the woods, trying to figure out when your fish are going to come, if they're going to come.
Yep.
And it changes every year. So
it does. And then you have bad years and you have, And so for you, you've done, I mean, you got 40 videos on steelhead, but you also have some trout stuff. Where did you draw the line on species that you covered and all that?
Well,
I mean, more for the more recent stuff you've been doing.
Yeah. I mean, I don't, like I say, I probably did 40 TV shows, but not 40 how-to videos on steelhead. But I mean, you're just trying to judge the audience and see what you think there's a desire to see out there. I mean, I was trying to kind of build, like I say, a complete collection in terms of the basic stuff, something on fishing, something on casting, something on the next level of fishing, something on entomology, something on tying. So I was trying to reach kind of a broad on the basics, and you're just trying to touch on stuff that you think people would have an interest that hasn't been hammered to death by other videos. So it just, it's not easy. I have a bunch of ones that don't sell at all, that I have stacks of, the stack goes to the ceiling of the DVDs in those boxes. And it's what you think is popular. I mean, I did one with a guy named Joe Warren on fishing smallmouth bass on the Columbia River, which I think is a really good video, and it's a really good fishery that's underfished, and it's exciting kind of fishing, because smallmouth are great, but it just has not done very well, because I guess there's a lot of guys that are not crazy about smallmouth, but it is a great fishery. But and then on like I say, on the other hand, I didn't think this gear fishing one on bobber dogging would, but boy, it was very successful. So you're just trying to figure stuff. And guys who, young guys like you who have really embraced the internet and getting out there. If you have your hosts like who are attuned to that, that makes a difference too. You have a guy who is very connected and thinks, they get a feel for what's going to work, what's not going to work. And there are trends, of course, spey fishing has grown, that's why that became popular. Just like I say, I think trout spey is growing. So I think that's going to become popular. So there's things that come along.
There definitely are things that I was just thinking, I mentioned this on the last episode, but you probably never heard of pigfarminc.com, I'll bet. But, it's kind of interesting because it just shows you some of the stuff that's out there on YouTube. And
Are they from back east?
Yeah, maybe so you have heard of them.
I did a muskie fishing tournament in, I want to say, Tennessee. I'm pretty sure the guys they're at that muskie tournament, they wore T-shirts with, I think, the pig farm on them.
That was probably it. Yeah, and I just recently, this week, kind of heard about their story. But the gist of kind of the stuff they're doing is, one of the things is they're going into bars or wherever and basically teaching people how to tie flies that have never even tied flies or know anything about it. And they're doing all sorts of weird things where, like, you have to do it blindfolded, and and they're tattooing each other at the bar and stuff.
Judging from the amount of partying that went on in that place next to me, I was working trying to do a TV show. But anyway, the extent of partying that was going on at the pig farm joint next door, I can believe what you're saying.
Yeah, totally. Yes. So I don't know the whole gist, so maybe there is some extensive partying or whatever. But I just think it gets to the point of, like, there's kind of some different crazy stuff going on out there, and those people, I think, are just building a little community of people that are into it, and
right.
But it's interesting to think of it because you've got a ton of information out there, and it's obviously a different audience and things like that. But there's a lot of different ways to do it, I guess, and I'm not sure what the secret is.
No, I think, like you say, though, I think the guy, what you said, to me, try and talk to Kelly Gallup, who's the guy who does my streamer videos. Kelly, he came up with, I think Kelly's deal is he's fishing a very active form of fly fishing, where you're casting and retrieving, and it's not the more, river runs through it vision of what it is. So I think there's a appeal to younger people with that being a more active and kind of competitive and fast moving deal. So I think there's trends that are picking up with younger anglers that weren't looked at before, they're looking at things not in the traditional sense.
Yeah.
So
no, I think you hit it on the head. Everybody, it's what's your niche? I was talking to John Shuey in a past episode, and he mentioned he's the editor of Northwest, Fly Fishing magazine, which is a big magazine. But his crowd, his readers are dedicated, but they're a little bit older. But and then compared to like the Drake magazine, which is more of a younger crowd. And then you can look at my thing where I'm not sure exactly the age of the people that listen to mine, but I know that there's also the Drake cast, which is maybe a little bit younger audience. And you just find your audience and you find your people, and they like your stuff. And I'm sure you have that. You've probably got your people over the years that will buy your stuff no matter what.
Yeah. No, I love those guys. They'll buy every one.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You can't get any better than that. And and a lot of them will not do, half of what that'll do. But you have to find your people.
That's cool.
And like I say, I hope some of it is somewhat timeless. So
yeah. Gosh, so you've fished with some big names and people and places all around the world. Are there anybody that you consider a mentor? You've done your own fishing, right? Do you do? I guess you still chase steelhead, or do you have a species? There's a couple questions there, but
yeah. No, I live near the Washougal, and I'll fish the Washougal for steelhead and the Kalama, and I get up to the Cowlitz, some on the Cowlitz, but we fish cutthroat on the Cowlitz too, and
cool.
and and trout. I mean, I'm a member of the Oregon Fishing Club, which has a number of trout lakes and access points for steelhead fishing too. They got like probably 40 different waters you can fish. It's kind of a lease deal where it's fenced off and they've got their own property, but they have a piece up here on the Washougal River where you can launch your boat, and it's the only boat launch on that piece of water. So I did a video for them so that I could have access to that one piece of steelhead water. So nice. That's how I ended up on that. But yeah, no, I like to steelhead fish. I like to fly fish trout. I gear fish trout with my grandkids. So yeah, no, I still like to fish. I don't get out like I used to. I do like to go I like the Deschutes, but I like those rivers in Montana and Wyoming to trout fish.
Yeah.
That's kind of awesome. I love to kind of drift a river and chuck flies if
yep.
And I was, if I had a lot of money and whatever, I'd probably go to Alaska some too, because I was lucky enough to fish in Alaska quite a bit.
That's right. Do you have, and then on that second part, do you have anybody you consider, I guess over your whole career that were kind of a mentor for you to help you get to, where you're an expert at video and production and all of that. Is there somebody that you kind of look back on and said they really influenced you?
Well, it's funny. Every place has their old timey outdoor guy, and I suppose when I started in television, it was the old timey outdoor guy in my neck of the woods.
Yeah.
Big Al, I think his name was.
Big Al, really?
Big Al. He did outdoor stuff, so I think that's what gave me the urge.
And this
here,
was
you had a guy here in this neck of the woods. You had a guy named Jim Conway.
Oh yeah,
I think was the original outdoor guy in this neck of the woods. But every place has had one. You've got the old guy who always went out and did the outdoor stuff, and I always thought that was a neat deal.
Huh.
McComie Grant.
Yep.
Sneaks in as much fishing and whatnot that he can. I know he does a lot of touring too, but you can tell he likes to fish.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know. It's I guess those kind of guys. And I don't know. I suppose Larry from Fishing the West. He allowed me to see into the world that I ended up in, I guess. So I look up to those guys. I kind of feel I kind of cut my own. I always went down, if you had two trails, I always went on the left one, which was not going to make you much money, but you're going to see a lot of new trails, I think is what happens. But of the neatest people I have got to see. I look at them probably differently than other guys. The famous guys, I can't say as much as I can the best anglers, and I managed to. There's Jack Dennis, who was a well-known angler. He provided me a lot of work and got me in that. He's kind of out of Jackson, Wyoming, which introduced me to that neck of the woods there, because I really didn't know that country that much. Kelly Gallup, my guy on the Madison, Davey Watton, the guy in the Southeast, just some great anglers. I don't know as any too many famous people. If I could remember as well as I used to, I probably could pick Pat McManus, who was the guy who wrote all the fishing books. I got to fish with him. His books are much funnier than he was.
Really?
Know that. And some athletes and whatnot, but
sure.
I remember the places more than I guess I remember the
no kidding,
the people and the fishing.
Yeah, and the fishing. Do you have a kind of a memorable story from one of the guests or one of the places from all the years of doing this?
Oh, geez.
It's not an easy
you
one.
know, not an easy one. Everybody, I probably did 125 stories with Fish in the West. So, I mean, I had some great memories from there. They fall in a different variety. Probably the greatest fishing we had a day on the Barrier Reef, the Great Barrier Reef off of Australia, when I think we caught 5 marlin. The biggest one probably 1,000 pounds, one probably about 700 pounds, according to the guide, who, guides lie, so you don't know, but another one about 500 and a couple about 250. So probably 5 marlin in one day. And as a photographer, pretty hard to beat that. If you messed up on one, you still had another one to make up for. So as far as a fishing day, that was probably as fantastic a fishing day as you could possibly have. For Steelhead, I did a show on the Sole Duck up on the Olympic Peninsula, and we got a fish that was probably a steelhead, probably 25 pounds on the Sole Duck, which is the only time I've ever seen one that big. And for a steelhead guy, that was pretty special. Before your time, there was a guy named Kurt Gowdy who did the American Sportsman's, which was probably, when you talk about what inspired me more than anything, was probably that, which was back in the days, which you won't remember. We only had 3 TV networks, and we only had one football game a weekend, if you can imagine. On Sunday, you would get a football game, and this guy was the announcer, Kurt Gowdy. And then after that, he did a show called American Sportsman, and he would go with famous fishermen, huntermen, anglers and hunters. And he did shows, fly fishing shows when nobody else really was, with some, famous anglers. And I did get to fish do shows with him. And that was pretty exciting to me. And, I think that was one of the things that, before there was the river run through it, there was Kurt Gowdy and his outdoor shows that were on Sunday afternoons across the whole country. And I think it introduced a lot of people to fly fishing. Yeah. And so he was a neat guy to be with. But I don't know. I probably remember the guides who could tell stories all day long and make you laugh, and the cranky ones who, the guy's less famous, but more interesting than the famous guys, I guess.
Yeah, no, I hear you. That's that's a lot of knowledge you've been around over the years, for sure.
And I think, one of the, I guess when people go, what did you learn about fishing? I think, I don't know which one of the, the guides or whatever tell you, but here we are, with fancy equipment, technology, and everything, trying to outsmart a fish. And, when it gets right down to it, they're not very smart, but they have good instincts. Mm-hmm. So I think you got to think of it more of an instinct thing, how you figure out their instincts and what their instincts do. And I think that's particularly true with steelhead. I think they instinctually, are frightened by stuff. They instinctually do stuff that makes them, sometimes easy to fool, sometimes difficult to fool. But when you look, and we shot a lot of underwater stuff, and when you look underwater and you see that little fly whipping down there, it amazes you that they can even find it, but they can. But it's, like I say, it's figuring out their instincts and what makes them do what they want to do. That's more important than looking at outsmarting them. I don't think they're brilliant animals, but they do have awful good instincts. They know when they're in danger, and they know, I think they particularly know, and it's always been puzzling to me. I think the thing about swinging flies and wet flies, like you talk, that doesn't seem to be a very natural deal. And the whole other deal about steelhead is, it seems to me you want to make the thing as natural as possible. When you're fishing it with nymphs or whatnot, you're trying to get a dead drift. You're fishing it with beads. You're trying to get it moving at the current speed and whatnot. And then you come into swinging flies, the traditional spey steelhead, and you look at that and go, what instinct is that? Is that working on it? That is probably, because I always looked at it like, how are they figuring that out? That sequential bringing that fly down again and again and again and again is what instinct is that triggering? I think there is some instinct somewhere that it is, and fortunately for spey guys, it works.
Yeah, that's the cool thing. I think it's kind of depending on where you're at, there's a little bit different instincts going on. But yeah, you might have the predator reaction where they're trying to attack a little fish sort of thing, so they're kind of crushing that, and you got all sorts of patterns there. But then you got the intruder stuff, which is just you're trying
startling them. Yeah,
and they're curious. But I mean, I think they are. I think they're either curious or they're trying to crush it and kill it or get it out of their territory. Or but it's interesting. I think you're right on though. The instinct is probably the most important thing if you can think about that. And that's a good perspective for sure. I was kind of thinking more, all the stuff you've been talking about, you've got a ton of resources for people on your site and everything over the years. Do you have any books or other videos or resources you follow that aren't your own that you're into?
Well, I have, there's a guy named Gary LaFontaine, who goes back, wrote a book on mayflies and wrote a book on caddisflies, which really evolved the thinking of a lot of traditional fly fishing. I mean, he was in the West, and he really opened people's eyes up to a lot of fly tying techniques and angling techniques when it came to mayflies and caddisflies and the what trout feed on. And unfortunately, he got Lou Gehrig's. I had done a number of shows with him, and he was getting to the point where he couldn't go out anymore. Oh, wow. And I knew he was a real writer and a well-read guy and whatnot. So I said, "Well, Gary, why don't you do book reviews?" And he picked out a number of different fly fishing books, which he thought were the foundation of, some of the fly fishing books. So. I did 12 different, I suppose, books that he did reviews on. So that was, in terms of me understanding probably the more basics of fly fishing, I read some of the basic historical trout fishing books, and that gave me a good foundation. But I guess I learned at some point I was a much more visual guy than I am. I can remember pictures much better than I can remember books and whatnot. Sure. So it's I guess I learned from the people I saw. That's what happened. And like I say, if you find somebody that you think they know what they're saying and know what they're talking about, if you study them, I think you can pick up a lot on. And there's a lot of good stuff out. And there's a lot of great guys in the Northwest who know what they are talking about. And fly fishing books are, you secondhand store or wherever, they're there. If you just dig into the ones you can find. Everybody's got everybody's got a thought on it. Like I say, I think we have a tendency to overcomplicate the stuff. So I agree. I think it's all there. If fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know which is the case. Fishermen have a whole hell of a lot of time while they're standing out there fishing to think about the deal.
That's true.
And it, for some reason, always compels them it compels a number of them to write about it, and a number of them to make and create different things we can buy to what we think are going to give us an advantage over something. So I think we're bombarded with stuff when it comes to fly fishing.
That's true. That's true.
But
Well, I think the cool thing about, the day and age we're in now is that, we're talking about books, and obviously books are always going to be there. But for me, I think it's whatever you find that you're into. And for me, that's part of the reason I got this show going, is that I just kind of love the audio kind of show process, and videos too. But I'm not as much of probably a reader as I am more into the audio and video, and that's kind of my thing. And I think there's probably somebody right now listening to this show, that probably is out, on a trip or driving somewhere and listening to this as we're talking. And
there's that, and
that's a different way to consume.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's YouTube. I mean, I got a grandkid here right now, and he's plugged into a headset and his YouTube deal, and that's what he looks at. That's what they, and nowadays you can pop up and, type something in, and you can get information, that you never could get before.
Yeah. Well, and
YouTube, for a guy,
for sure. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying, and of course, for a guy who's made videos for a living and sold them, it's a tough deal, because now there's so much free out there, there's so much free, and it's a great thing for people who want to learn, because you can find what you never could find before, and you can find it for free. You used to have to pay me to learn it. Yeah. I still think it's nice to go to a real guy who's got a reputation and learn, the whole deal, what he might know in one piece, as opposed to searching around for all kinds of parts of it. But honestly, to tell you the truth, it used to be, if I made an instructional fly fishing video, for example, the first one on articulated streamers that was out there, I sold a whole lot of those. Now, if I make one of those videos, in a matter of a month, every one of those ties that's on there is going to be on the internet for free in a month.
Yeah. And I think you're right. I mean, it's obviously changing, and it always will change. I mean, the one thing that doesn't change, and we talked a little bit about this off air before, but is building your audience or your crew or your people that follow you. And that's
correct.
Kind of what you do. You go on YouTube, and if you want to do that model, you give a bunch of videos away for free, and people love them. They get to know you, and they subscribe to your channel. And then when you have something that's worth value that you want to sell, and then those people are there to buy it because they're your raving fans. I mean, that's kind of the one model you could look at that's different from before.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But it's more accessible than it's ever been.
Totally. Which is, I mean, tough. Like you're saying, it's tough for folks like you where you're trying to sell those videos.
Yeah, it's a good thing I'm getting old.
Yeah, exactly. Because for some people, that definitely want the free stuff out there.
Yeah.
And I will say one other thing on this note, not to belabor the point, but it is all on YouTube for sure. But also, people will pay for convenience. And if you can give them something where they don't have to go search YouTube for a couple of days to find everything, if you can just give them a little package of something, they'll pay for that convenience. So there's still that,
Yes, that's true. And streaming has changed that. People are willing to stream, like you say, if they conveniently can stream it or download it and just have it there at their convenience. It is there. But like I say, it's seek it out, because and like I say, there's books there, and there's videos there, and you can be specific. You can hone it down to, if you're a spey guy, if you want to know more about your switch rod, or if you want to know your line, or you want to know, how to construct your leaders, or how to tie your flies too.
Totally.
It's a marvelous time. It's overwhelming, I think, in some ways. It's like, how do you sort what's important? But I would say, like you just said, is find somebody that you feel like you're getting something out of, or find some organization or group that you trust, and mind that for what you can get out of it.
Yep. And that's that's kind of what I'm doing here, right? I'm providing a free, resource, people to learn from some of the best best in the business, people that have done it before, and that's part of my value I'm offering. But Gene, we're just about there. I had just a couple more questions I wanted to throw out at you before I let you go, and one of them's kind of big and one of them's kind of small, but we talked a little bit about this, I guess, but at the end of the day, and down the line, 50 years from now, what do you think of your connection to the whole fishing, really, it's fishing industry and the whole fishing, fly fishing and gear fishing, and then what is your what would you like to be remembered for? What's your connection to all that? Do you ever think about that?
I suppose you get older, you think about that stuff. I imagine it would be that I have provided a avenue for some people to convey their knowledge, what they knew about fishing, angling, so that other people could enjoy it. I think there was always an element of trying to respect the resource. I mean, fishing has made my living and fed my kids and whatever for 35 years or so. And I think that you don't have good fishing without good water and a good environment. So I would hope some of that runs through there somehow. But I guess it would be that I've introduced some people who can give you good instruction and help people enjoy recreation, and hopefully if they enjoy recreation, they will help protect our resources, because you don't have fish or good fishing without a good environment, and that's what I would like. I don't know if that's the case, but that's what I would like to come of it, I guess. Yep.
No, I agree. I think we're working there. We got a lot of work ahead of us to make sure we got healthy populations for the next generation. But I think what you've done is introduce, I'm sure, thousands of people, over the years to fishing, which is no small feat. So that's pretty awesome.
And fly fishing, it's funny. The first instructional video we did was introduction to fly fishing with a couple, Terry and Wendy Gunn, who are still run a fly shop on the Colorado River at Lee's Ferry, which is right where all the boats put in to run the Colorado, and then they go up from there in Glen Canyon. And to this day, Sportsman's Warehouse still sells a lot of my videos. It still sells. I mean, the waders look funny, and it is, but I imagine 20 or 25,000 of those have gone out, and we also did after that the introduction to fly casting, and I suppose 10 or 15,000 of those. So you look back and you go, well, there's 25,000 people who wanted to learn how to fly fish it. It gave them a start, and so anyway, there's a lot of people there who got their feel for fly fishing, and hopefully it was unintimidating. And I just think, like I say, the fly shops, there's a lot of good fly shops. There's a lot of good people in fly shops and whatnot, but some of it has all been too intimidating, and too many people who want to be perceived as being the keepers of the knowledge. When it, my feeling is you're there to share it and not make it disappear if it makes you know more than anybody else, So I there's a little bit of that still goes on in the industry. Like we know it, and you have to come to our temple to learn it, and it's just BS as far as I'm concerned. It is, like I say, it's not as complicated as it sometimes is made to be, but and like I say, it can be enjoyable, but people don't need to be put off by what what it is. It's just it's a technique, is what it is, huh?
Yep. No, I agree. I think some of those days are, most of them are behind us now. I think we're in the day of free. A lot of it's free knowledge, and like we talked, there's lots of information out there. So there's lots of people and resources. But Cool. Well, we're just want to ask you maybe in the next 6 months if you have anything new coming up you want to share that we can look forward to, or anything.
I wish I could say I had something brilliant new that was coming up, but I don't. Other than I will start chucking up on the YouTube flyfishtv.com. I will start chucking up the old shows, so you'll be able to see. And I say my shows are always, they kind of have one part, which is the guys fishing and trying to show you something, and then they will have a tying instruction in it, and then they have a little piece from one of the how-to videos in there. So there's a little bit, like I say, that you could pick up and how-to stuff as time goes on. But I will start, like I say, adding more to them. So on a regular basis, it's one of my goals is to keep bringing it out there.
Yep. Good stuff. So yeah, I'll keep an eye on that. And like I said at the beginning, all the show notes for all these links that you've covered here and we've talked about will be at wetflyswing.com/23. And I'll make sure to link out to all your stuff and get a bunch of, get more people involved, and we'll go from there. So yeah, if people want to find you, where should we send them online?
Well, it's just flyfishtv.com. You can get to me through there.
Okay. Perfect.
All right, and I appreciate the talk. I wish I was a better speaker, but if you look at the videos, like I say, I mostly rely on other people to provide the information.
You did awesome, Gene. No, this is
okay.
This has been a great show. I mean, I think I have different people on every week, and we kind of touched on a lot of what you've done for 35 years, and I think people are going to appreciate that, especially those that are kind of trying to get into into this niche and learn a little bit about it. So yeah, no, I appreciate you spending the time, and I'll keep in touch with you, and we'll see you sometime soon, hopefully.
Yep. Well, good luck with the show.
All right. Thanks. So there you go. If you want to find all the show notes with all the links we covered, just go to wetflyswing.com/23. And head on over to wetflyswing.com/community to connect with the Facebook group over there where we're continuing the conversation. I believe if you also get a chance, it would be great if you could leave a quick review on iTunes. You can head on over to wetflyswing.com/review, and there's a quick little guide there on putting this together. Thanks again for stopping by the show, and hopefully look forward to catching up with you soon, maybe online or on the river. Later.
Thanks for listening to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show. For notes and links from this episode, visit wetflyswing.com. And if you found this episode helpful, please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes.